All right, guys, we're closing in on the end. You might say I'm a blasphemer, but you can't say I'm not dedicated. All right, so we were at the crucifixion. He's saying how this one psalm is kind of close to what supposedly happened to Jesus, and that's what he was referencing. Again, based on no evidence and multiple translations and words handed down for generations without being written. So let me skip ahead. In order to grasp the magnitude of these final verses, it's important to remember that whenever you see the word nations in the Old Testament, that is an English translation of the Hebrew word for all non-Jewish peoples, the Gentile nations, from Hebrew goyim. Thus, Psalm 22 begins with the persecution and execution of the king of Israel, but it ends with the miraculous conversion of the pagan nations to the worship of the Lord, the God of Israel. In light of this, the contemporary Jewish scholar Judith Newman writes, Jesus' words on the cross from Psalm 22:1 may thus not simply lament divine abandonment, but point to the end of the psalm with its praise for divine restoration. Wow, we're reading all this into some stuff that we don't even know he said. Like, come on, guys. Even in his dying breath, Jesus poses one last riddle. Which of them? There's 3 different versions. The riddle of Psalm 22. On the one hand, it looks and sounds as if he has been abandoned by the very God whose son he has claimed to be. I thought he was God. On the other hand, if you know the Jewish scriptures, you will also know the end of the story. 33. You know, I'm not doing credit to all the little, what do they call those things? End notes? Yeah, I guess they're in the end. They're end notes. Alright, we're at the crucifixion. Okay, chapter 11, number 33. Keener, the historical Jesus of the Gospels. Page 576. Quote, Jesus had to know that Psalm 22 went on to declare the psalmist's vindication. He had to. He just had to. Oh my gosh, guys. You were grasping at straws. And it's not even a good story. Like, I could see if Christianity supported good ethics and being wise, then it would be worth lying to your children to convince them to be good. But it's not even good ethics. It's not even wisdom. So what's the lies all about? Fear, ostracism, like torture, stoning, like that's what the God of the Bible supports. So why are we lying to each other to support bad ethics and bad history and bad reasoning abilities? All right. For though Jesus appears to be forsaken by God, he is revealing that not only is his death part of the divine plan, it is also the event that will trigger the conversion of all the families of the nations to worship of the one God of Israel. They're all going to join our cult because this one guy died. That happens all the time. It's not a big deal. That happens throughout history, on every continent. Every country has cults, and this guy's like, oh, blah, 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 and people believe it, you know? Like, if they care if you believe it, there's something to be suspicious of. Like, if you actually know the truth, you don't really care if other people believe it too, because you're comfortable in your own skin. So, I mean, you might try to help people realize the truth, but you don't get hung up on it because it's not about your ego. So you can tell the Bible and Christians are in the wrong because they care so much whether you believe it or not, because they're doubtful, but they don't want to admit that. So they have to project onto others like, oh, you got to believe it, otherwise I'll feel insecure. Like, no, just go hang out in nature, camp in a tent for a while, drink water from a stream, and like play in the rain, and enjoy being God, because it's pretty fun, even though it's temporary. All right. And that's exactly what begins to happen at the foot of the cross when the Roman centurion sees what occurs. And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood facing him saw that he thus breathed his last, he said, truly this man was the Son of God. Written by somebody else 100 years later. The centurion did not write that down. So we don't know what the centurion said or thought, or if there was even a centurion there. That's not good evidence, guys. Alright, and so the prophecies begin to be fulfilled. Oh my gosh, if you want to see that, then you can. It's not hard to just see the world as conforming to what you already believe. But if you want to have good outcomes, if you want to be able to predict the future, you need to recognize mistakes, recognize errors, actually focus on those errors, don't try to fit everything to your preconceived notions. Look for the contradictions, because they're going to help you more than anything. Alright, far from being evidence that Jesus died a failure, the cry of dereliction is evidence that he saw his death as the fulfillment of the prophecies that would bring about the conversion of the pagan peoples of the world to the worship of the God of the Jews. And look around you now. What are literally billions of non-Jews from the Gentile nations doing? Worshipping the one God of the Jewish people. And when did this phenomenon begin? With the passion and the death of Jesus of Nazareth on the cross.